Happy Friday to you. Welcome to Squawk Alley for Friday. Joining us this morning, Shelly Palmer with Landmark Ventures is here at Post 9, along with John Ford and Kayla Tausche on a day where we're looking at the markets. S&P's going for 4 straight up days. Hasn't done that since January. In the red right now, though. The NASDAQ hit that record high yesterday, passing the highs from March of 2000. Top winners since then, by the way, as we talked about yesterday, Monster Beverage, Keurig Green Mountain, Tractor Supply. We're talking gains of 50,000% since then. Apple also has had a pretty good run, just 3,000%. Unfortunately, not the 27 cents to 130 bucks. But obviously, the markets are definitely on the move. Shelly, your thoughts on some of this stuff? I mean, not to the degree you follow valuations.
Look, we do, and there's an overarching thesis in the 21st century. The velocity of information is increasing and will always increase. And if you believe that, and you look at the stocks at NASDAQ, you say to yourself, if I'm long, I'm in a good place.
There are a lot of people who come on our show and say, well, it's really hard to value technology because it's not really a sector anymore. It's a theme. It's something that's affecting all industries and all companies. So how do you really put a cap on something like that?
I think that is 100% correct. As a matter of fact, it is a theme. I can't imagine a company anywhere on the earth that isn't affected by the transformation that's occurring right now. If you're not in the midst of a digital transformation, you ought to be. So any company could be considered technologically empowered. The difference is there are certain companies that literally do provide the infrastructure and the tools that allow for digital transformation. And those companies obviously can go only one direction, up, or they can fail. Wait, that's 2 directions. Oh, no.
Yeah. Mark Andreessen likes to say software is eating the world. John, you've been on this for a long time. The transition from hardware to software and sort of the messiness in that. Oracle's a good example of that this week.
Yeah, that's true, and part of what Oracle's doing is this transition to the cloud, and despite the fact that they have these currency headwinds, and when you do a cloud transition, you don't get as much upfront revenue, they had a pretty strong story to tell if the trends continue in the direction that they have been, just in terms of the amount of cloud business they're picking up, the number of customers that they say that they're getting on the cloud that weren't already legacy software customers. I think in today's technology, you've got to separate from the technology that everybody's already using and understands. A lot of that falls under smartphones, even some of the cloud stuff. And then some of these bets where technology is trying to get closer to life. Your Ubers, your Airbnbs, your Muncheries. Where are those going to end up in the next 5 years? Some of the bets will probably succeed and some will fail.
So a lot of them will go public, and 2016 is the year.
Fitbit's up another 12% today.
A lot
Here's
of
the deal, though.
will go public in a world where there's no Fed-induced rally.
They absolutely will. Look, what John just said is true, but there are 2 ways to think about that. Uber and the companies like it are meta companies. They take advantage of inefficiencies in the world, and they try to solve for them with technology. And there's an amazing growth in that area. On the other side, you have to sit back and say to yourself, look, the tech bubble itself isn't really a bubble. It's a themed bubble. When John just spoke about the cloud future is based on security, right? Can you build a data center that is more secure than Oracle or Amazon or IBM or fill in the blank? I would think a lot of people are going to say, I would like a gigantic tech company who is awesome at security, preventing me from being the U.S. government, which just lost 4 million pieces of information on employees they shouldn't have lost. No one wants to be on the wrong side of that, and since everybody fears they will, the cloud business is going to become a different kind of business than it was just a year ago. John is right, though. The meta services, you have to look at them, because if there is a bubble anywhere, it's people getting exuberant about, oh, they're solving an inefficiency that may or may not exist. They say, for example, the #1 provider of hotel rooms doesn't own a hotel. The #1 car service provider doesn't own a car. Yep. The #1 photo service doesn't own a camera. Okay, as long as these things are true, there is some opportunity for people to get a little too excited that these companies are making money.
That's a really good caveat. Let's move on to Twitter this morning. As you might have heard, Chris Sacca, outspoken investor, wrote a blog post on Twitter's ongoing CEO search. He says, quote, the CEO transition announcements were sloppy and confusing. He goes on to say that specific statements about Twitter's future crushed investor hopes and turned what could have been a very positive event for the company into a debilitating mess. Joining us this morning to talk about that, Bob Peck of SunTrust joins us on the phone. Bob, good morning to you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
You were, I would say, the first to argue Costello would be gone by year end. You were clearly right. What do you think happens now?
Well, so first of all, we back in December said we thought this could happen if they had execution issues, and obviously it has now. So the question really is who takes over. And we put out a note today where we identified top 5 leading candidates, 2 internal with Adam Bain and Jack Dorsey, and then Mike McHugh, who was formerly on the board, now CEO of Flipboard, and Ross Levinson, former CEO of Yahoo, and Neil Mohan over at Google. We've also heard, a range of 30 other names or so that it could be very interesting. I'd say those top 5 that you've seen there are probably the most speculated by investors right now.
Bob, there's a thread in a piece by the New York Times this morning, though, talking about Adam Bain, talking about Anthony Noto, and saying that maybe the internal candidates won't get as much consideration because they don't have experience running a public company. How important do you see that fact in the search?
We do think it's pretty important, and that's probably the one negative that you hear most about Adam Bain. And that's one of the reasons in our note this morning, we thought something like a Ross Levinson, who obviously has run a large media company in Yahoo, coming in for the next 2-3 years or so, almost sort of grooming Adam Bain to take over, is a really interesting scenario there. Think of it almost like in the NFL, where you have the veteran quarterback that comes in and sort of tutors and nurtures the younger rookie quarterback who will be a stud one day. So we think that's an interesting scenario on how that could play out as well.
I see Shelly shaking his head.
Look, top management at Twitter is very important. Top management everywhere is very important. Twitter has a fundamental flaw, a problem that's so significant and no one seems to want to admit to it, that they really have to deal with it first. The product is terrible. And the way I know the product is terrible is very simplistic. If you believe television advertising works, and I do, Twitter gets more free television advertising than any other product in the entire world. And since it has not been able to build its user base with all of the free advertising, including from myself and everyone on this show, there's no show in the world that doesn't have a Twitter handle. There's no person in the world of note that doesn't have one. The product clearly is not resonating with consumers. It's resonating with television people who need the ratings. It's resonating with Hollywood for Q level. The product itself, for a normal person, is suboptimal. And if you look at the migration off the product, fix the product, the problem is solved.
Yeah,
fix the management, the product first.
They have had a lot of churn. Bob, I'm wondering from you, what's the risk if this CEO search takes a long time? Say it's beyond the end of this year into next year, and they just sort of sit on Jack as the interim CEO for an extended period. Do they lose people internally who are key to them? Do they turn off people who they're bringing in and talking to? Do they need to do this quickly or no?
Yeah, we think they do. We raised that in the first bullet of our note this morning, that they need to make the correct decision, but they need to make it quickly. And that's why I think you see that short list so interesting there. The key here will be the cadence of product innovation. I think Shelly's right. What's the new products that gets the masses back to Twitter, that increases engagement, that grows that user base? And that will be the key. I think the great point that Chris Sacca made yesterday is that a lot of these products are already underway, and that inside the company they can see them and have a gauge what the impact can be, but the public eye hasn't seen them yet. So hopefully that's correct.
Bob, it's good to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time. Bob Peck joining us from SunTrust today on Twitter, up 4% as these changes are announced, and we get a little more takeover speculation yet again. Finally, the Apple Watch now available in stores. And 9 to 5 Mac is out with some new details on the next generation. It says the next version will have a video camera, a new wireless system for greater independence from the iPhone, battery life that's similar to the current model, and then some more Apple news. According to BuzzFeed, Taylor Swift refusing to put her most recent album, 1989, on Apple Music. Of course, you recall she pulled her albums from Spotify following a dispute last year. I'm getting used to the term Relfie, which is apparently a selfie that you would take from your wrist, John Fort.
I'm afraid that this could be a terrible idea, Carl. As it is, I feel like the watch is not good enough at some core things that they need to get right. We'll see how Watch OS 2 does for those things. Weather is slow. Directions from the maps, if you're walking, they're terrible. There's some basic things that the watch has wrong. Add a camera to it to do video calling. I mean, on the battery, how long a video call will you really be able to do? Apple didn't add FaceTime to the iPhone until the iPhone 4. So if they add it to the Watch 2, I'm concerned.
Shelly, your thoughts?
Are you noticing what is not on this wrist? Oh my goodness. And here's why and only why.
Does he have a really nice one on the other wrist?
No, God bless you. That's true. It is a very nice watch. But that's not the point. I wasn't going to go there. What I was going to say is that what it does to my iPhone 6 Plus battery is unacceptable for the benefit that it gives me. Now, look, it's really nice to get a notification on your wrist. Now we're done with all the things that are really nice about the Apple Watch. The idea that they're making a second Apple Watch, we knew they would. If you were silly enough to buy the first one, which I was, you're now going to be silly enough to buy the second one, which I won't.
Are you serious? Is this a fool me once kind of thing?
Fool me once, shame on, you.
Yeah.
Fool me twice. Are you kidding? John's right. There's no compelling reason to own this device. Not yet. I think they have some work to do. Now, as for Taylor Swift, Taylor is the lone wolf because she's so famous that she's making so much money, she can probably hold out. But she's on the wrong side of history for the right reason. She wants to make money. Artists should make money. They are not making money the way they should. They never have in the entire business. At the end of the day, though, you got to fish where the fish are. At a certain point, and I had this experience this weekend, my little granddaughters wanted to listen to Taylor. I had Spotify going, pressed the button, and as I'm looking for it, I realized, oh, wait a minute, she's not here. and when I tell you a 4-year-old has no tolerance for you don't have it in the 21st century, they don't know why TV shows aren't always on, and they certainly don't know why music isn't always available. Sorry, granddaughters. Taylor Swift is not on Spotify. Oops.
Trouble in the Palmer house.
Just seriously.
Shelly, good weekend.
Thank you so
much. Shelly Palmer joining us today.